Should the Browns add another wide receiver? Let's talk about that on today's episode because I've seen some chatter regarding this subject from Tony Grossi, from Zach Jackson at The Athletic, and I thought, you know what, there's probably enough merit to this subject to break it down a little bit on today's episode because when you look at the Browns wide receiver room, it's a little bit on the underwhelming side. Like Jerry Jeudy showed us last year what a great gamble, I think it's probably the best way to put it, that move was from Andrew Berry, right? The trade itself didn't cost you a whole lot, a fifth and a sixth, but you gave him an extension before you even put cleats on in Berea. So that was the gamble, and it paid off, incredibly well. Because the Browns didn't do that extension, they'd have to pay Jerry Jeudy, way much more than they ended up giving him the extension. So kudos to Barry. It was a gamble, and it paid off. But after Jeudy, which you can kind of like put away on the depth chart, you got in him. He's awesome. He's great. He's going to be great. You have fair questions. Like this is coming from a Tennessee grad who loves Cedric Tillman and from a pure bias standpoint wants to see Ced succeed in Cleveland. If he's your number two option, which when healthy, that seems to be like the slam dunk option, I don't think it's a bad option, but I really just quickly glossed over two words. Did you pick up on that? When healthy. Last year, he had a concussion in the Ravens game, right? No, the Steelers game, sorry. The Snow Globe game. Knock him out for the rest of the year. That's concerning, right? That's a long-term head injury right there. All it takes is one more hit, and who knows how much more time he could miss. That's scary, but that's a real thought you have to have right now. So you're an injury away from losing your number two receiver who, listen, I'm in on because I know how awesome he was at Tennessee because I watch him every single Saturday. And then last year, after Cooper was traded to the Bills and Tilman got more reps, we really started to see him kind of, take that opportunity and run with it. He was putting up some awesome numbers and an okay-ish sample size. Not a ton of games. We could throw some stats up right here, but a couple of weeks where he's putting up a lot of receptions, a lot of yards, and some touchdowns. But it'd be a bit, I don't know, premature to go, hey, you see those 3-4 games right there? We're going to get all that for 17 games now. Maybe slow down a little bit. So when you factor in the injury concern and, a smallish sample size of some really good numbers from Tilman, I can understand why people might be curious about kicking the tires and adding another receiver. Because after Tilman, your options are Mike Woods, who really hasn't shown us a lot of production on the field, but he's had some really good, and I know this will sound kind of cheesy, almost like really good highlights from training camp, right? But unfortunately, he had an Achilles injury, knock him out for all of 2023. So there's just a lot unknown regarding the former, 6th-round pick out of OU. And then you got David Bell, who missed all of last year, the hip injury, or missed almost all of last year. I forgot when he sustained it. But, yeah, you are one. I mean, God forbid, Jeudy, who, by the way, it's not like he's completely, injury-free in his history. He missed some time with an ankle injury throughout his career in Denver. So, Jeudy goes down, they're screwed. So, yeah, I could see why the Browns would have some interest in adding another wide receiver. The devil's advocate would be, are the Browns really going anywhere this year? If the answer is no, then why stunt the growth and development of some of those younger wide receivers by bringing on an older receiver? And then the other receiver I forgot is DeAndre Johnson. And that's because I just don't have a lot of belief in him, so he quickly falls out of my memory. But if Johnson can get back to what he was in Pittsburgh before he just started to become a bit of a prima donna, that'd be a really good, productive receiver on your team. I'm in major see it to believe it mode with Deontay. I'm just not there because I just feel like this has like a handful of other Browns players that have been acquired over the last few years. Perrion Winfrey written all over it. Of talent's there, but I don't think he's going to avoid getting into some kind of trouble or getting himself into trouble by missing practice and things like that and getting released from the team. And I base that up purely off of You got traded to the Baltimore Ravens last year, a playoff-bound team, and you managed to get released. And then you go to the Texans, also a playoff-bound team, and manage to get released. If that's the way you're behaving on teams going to the playoffs, let's be honest with one another here. Have the Browns built a good culture in that locker room to make sure guys who have a history of acting up or acting out and getting themselves into trouble, is that a locker room that's going to make sure they stay in line? I don't think so. So, Johnson, he is major. I'll believe it when I see it for me, and I just can't confidently tell you guys, well, you've got Jeudy and Johnson for sure. Nope, I'm not there. I'm not there. So now let's look at 3 veteran wide receivers Cleveland could pursue. And I'm going to go in order of somewhat likelihood, starting off with Amari Cooper. You might look at it as a little bit of awkward, right? They traded him to the Bills. They tried to trade him to the Niners to get Brandon Ayuk. And that may or may not have led to Cooper having a disastrous, and that's really probably the only way to put it, disastrous start to the 2024 season with just unthinkable drops from a guy who has got the most surefire hands in the league. I'm not too concerned about the awkwardness level. If I'm Cooper, and I'm not getting a lot of phone calls, and I've got an opportunity to go to Cleveland and play with Joe Flacco, if I'm Cooper, I'm thinking, where can I go this year to make the most amount of money next offseason? And if I'm looking over my few options, whatever they may be, and one of those options include reuniting with Joe Flacco, who I put up historic numbers with, that's probably your best option for putting up the best stat line in 2025 to get the best possible payday in March of 2026. And at this stage of his career, 30 years old, that's probably his line of thinking. Maybe he wants to go somewhere where he can win a ring. And honestly, if I were him, that's what I'd do too, because he's made $100 million, and to me that's, more than enough money for a lifetime, but not everyone thinks that way when they get a taste of that lifestyle, and maybe they want to chase more money like that. But if he wants to go somewhere where he can win, I'm not going to advertise Cleveland as the best opportunity for that. But if he wants to go somewhere to set himself up in the future for success, Flacco is a pretty good bet to make based on the last time those two guys connected. That's one option. Option number 2, Gabe Davis. He was with the Bills. He goes to the Jags. Still a free agent, right? Yeah, I think so. Well, that's what happens when you go on a honeymoon. He could bring a lot of newness, I'll say, to the Browns receiver room. He's a good blocking receiver. And I'm thinking about with Kevin Stefanski adding 2 running backs in the draft, would he probably like to do a little bit more of? And that's probably run the football. And you need 11 guys. Well, you need 10 guys out. You need 9 guys out there blocking. Your quarterback does not have to block, and your running back does not have to block. Everyone else has to block, though. All right? Because it's, 9 on 11. So that was unfortunate. But you get the gist of it. So Davis, obviously, bringing the field stretching abilities as well. That's a good option. And then the third one's Keenan Allen. He's a savvy veteran route runner. I think he's going to end up in LA with the Chargers. I'm guessing the Chargers, I thought that would have happened after June 1st. So now we're closing on July 1st, and that hasn't happened yet. But if I had to guess, Allen goes to LA. But if he doesn't, I could see Andrew Berry bringing Allen over, or at least reaching out. Keenan Allen said he either wants to play in Chicago, go back to the Bears, or go back to the Chargers. But if the Bears aren't calling, and if the Chargers decide, hey, we actually really like what we have in some of our younger guys, we're going to stay with them, beggars can't be choosers. So Allen could be a nice security blanket if the Browns turn to a rookie quarterback, especially knowing, hey, you just worked with rookie Caleb Williams last year, and we'd like for you to have that same kind of role again this year if they expect or kind of catch wind of Shador, Dylan Gabriel are really emerging as our top 2 quarterback options. One of those 2 guys is going to be a starter by week 2 or 3, maybe even week 1. So those are 3 veteran wide receivers to keep an eye on. I wouldn't rule out the Browns adding a receiver. It's a position that Andrew Berry values a ton. So keep that in the back of your mind as we inch towards, training camp breaking ground almost a month from today.